What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review. This time, we're going to be taking a look at Candyman, written and directed by Bernard Rose, based off the short story The Forbidden by Clive Barker. The film stars Tony Todd and Virginia Madsen. Okay, I can talk about Candyman forever. I love this movie, but I'm just going to try and make this review as short as I possibly can. Candyman, to me, is that last great horror slasher villain that bridges the gap between the 80s and the 90s, and Candyman bridges that gap perfectly. Like the 80s, we have an iconic horror villain, but like the 90s, we have a very thought provoking and captivating story right over here. So, basic plot of Candyman is very very simple. These two college graduates are doing a paper on urban legends, and they go to the housing projects of Chicago known as Capini Green to investigate the urban legend of one called Candyman. Now, of course, the character of Helen, played by Virginia Madsen, she does not believe in the origin. She does not believe that Candyman is a myth. She believes that Candyman is an actual real person in the projects committing a bunch of killings. And in her mind, she's proven right when she gets attacked. However, because early in the movie, her and her friend went to a mirror and said the man's name 5 times, she comes into contact with the real Candyman, and pretty much starts getting framed for a bunch of killings that he commits. So, all the while, because Helen was a disbeliever, Candyman has to now shed innocent blood to make his congregation, in his words, believe in him again. So, right off the bat, we have a very, very, very chilling story that mixes its gore with a very thought provoking and captivating story. And I got to give a lot of credit to Bernard Rose with his direction and his writing. He wrote with this movie. This movie is really, really, really well written. It doesn't go for cheap scares. It doesn't go for no cheese value. He handles everything with good maturity, with his writing and his direction. In this movie is fantastic. He creates this very, very creepy, intense atmosphere. I love the look of Capini Green. It's got that rundown, seedy look, and he captures that on camera perfectly. He makes Caprini Green look like a place you don't want to step even 1 foot in. That's how rundown, seedy, and just shady that place looks. And he creates that atmosphere perfectly. The way he directs his actors is on point. This movie has got a very very slow build, and it earns that right to get to Candyman. When it finally does at the 40-minute mark of the movie, it earns that right by building up its characters, by building up its story. And when that Candyman reveal happens for the first time, you're not disappointed, you're immediately creeped out. And that is what leads me to Tony Todd. Tony Todd as Candyman, what can be said about his performance that has not been said before? It's iconic, it's beautiful. He brings a Shakespearean elegance to it. But at the same time, there's this underlying creep. There's underlying creep factor to it. Creep factor meaning that he has that intimidating stature, and he has that deep hypnotic voice that once he starts talking, like Helen, you become hypnotized because you can't take your eyes off the screen. That goes, all that talent, all that credit goes to Tony Todd. Fantastic. The movie would not be the same without him. It'd be a failure without Tony Todd. His performance as Candyman is needed to sell this movie as being legit, and he does it perfectly. And Virginia Madsen as the character of Helen, she's just as good in her role as well. I like the dynamic between her and Candyman. I like how it's an understated romance in a way without being too overblown with it. Especially when you find out Candyman's backstory about how he was the son of a free slave, and how and how Candyman was also a painter. And while he was doing a portrait of a rich family one day, the daughter and Candyman of the rich family, the daughter of the rich family, fell in love with the Candyman, and vice versa, which led to the Candyman being lynched and burned within Capini Green and having his ashes scattered all over Capini Green itself. So Candyman's backstory is that it was that of one racial prejudice. But I like how the movie does not put that at the forefront, which to me would have been a mistake if it did, because then you're taking away a lot of the mystification of the Candyman himself. But by having that be part of his backstory, but not having that engulf the story itself, I like that because it put the intimidation factor first, and it put the feel sorry for me stuff behind it. Like, you do feel sorry for the Candyman when you hear his backstory, but at the same time, he is a character that you need to be feared, especially when he starts doing his killing. And speaking of the killings, I like how this movie does have gore to it, but it doesn't have explicit gore. Is what I'm trying to say. Like it does have graphic scenes, but Bernard Rose is so good at his direction that he doesn't like dwell on it. You know, there are certain moments where where Candyman's about to do a kill and it cuts away and you just hear screams and like cutting sounds and everything's up to the imagination. But you do get some scenes where Candyman does go in for the kill, particularly where he kills this doctor by pretty much cutting him up from the back and all the way up, which is kind of gnarly to itself. And we do see the aftermath of how when Candyman kills a dog, like taking its head off, but we see the aftermath. And of course, during that scene, Candyman also kidnaps a little baby, which gives this movie now a ticking time bomb because now Helen has to find the baby. So like this movie has got a lot going for it. It's got a good story. It's got a good cast. I mean, I know I talked about Helen and the Candyman and stuff, but the movie's got a good supporting cast. You got Xander Berkeley, who plays Helen's husband, and he plays a good sleaze. You got the little character of Jake, who's pretty cool. You got the character of Bernie, played by Kelsey Lemons, who's the best friend of Helen, and I buy them as being good friends. So yeah, there's a lot more to talk about with this movie, but those are just my general bare bones thoughts. Overall, I love Candyman. This movie is a perfect 10. It is a beautiful bridge between the old school slasher movies and the 90s slasher movies. This one fits right in the middle by having a captivating villain, an intriguing story, and good kills to boot. So 10 out of 10 for Candyman. Let me know your thoughts on this movie in the comment section down below. Do you like it? Do you hate it? I'd like to know. Like the video and subscribe. Check it back next time for more.